Will Lucas here, Black Tech Green Money. So good to be with you guys again. Today I got a special guest. I've been looking forward to this one when I saw it on my calendar. I'm like, it's about to go down. So JoJo Simmons is co-CEO of 3 is 4, a New York City-based creative studio, redefining storytelling by transforming purpose-driven brands into global cultural movements. 3 is 4 delivers bespoke content strategies, emotionally resonant media across film, television, digital, experiential, and social platforms. Son of hip hop icon Rev Run of Run DMC. You've seen him on TV. You've seen JoJo all over your screens. He rose to fame on MTVs Runs House, which ran from 2005 2009, and won him an NAACP Image Award. Later, he also starred in Growing Up Hip Hop. Welcome, JoJo Simmons.
What's up, brother? And there's one thing I do want to say, and it's not that you're wrong. I do want to correct that. For the last 2.5 years, I was co-CEO of my company,
Okay.
with my founding partner, Chris Carl. We recently named Shara Tomlin as our new CEO. She's
Congrats.
a Black woman. We're so happy to have her take over that role. As a lot of people don't know, CEO is a hard role to have. And as co-founding members, we're like, thank you. Take those responsibilities so we can handle the business and close the deals and keep on bringing the clients in. But I do want to shout out, and I don't say that to correct you. I say that to give Shara the love and honor that she's been doing an amazing job over the last few weeks to the last few months with really, turning things up at 3 is 4. So just want to shout out to our CEO, Shara Tomlin, as we start this up. And I'm sure she'll be doing a lot of interviews and things coming up where people will really learn who she is and why we chose her to be in that position. But just wanted to put that out there. And thank you for that introduction, brother. It was more than needed.
No, thank you for that, and thank you for the clarity also. That is important as we set the stage for today's conversation. Yeah, I'm interested in, you had an upbringing unlike most of us, in the public eye, and, a legacy that you come from also, and you're the next generation of that. And I wonder how coming up under that sort of legacy and pressure, how that shapes your identity, both as an artist and as an activist and business person.
I think in all senses, when you could wrap all of those up, from artist to entrepreneur to activist to advocate, growing up and watching not only my dad perform for, thousands of people, and watching my uncle go in rooms and close deals that were amazing deals. It weren't not just like Fat Farm Def Jam deals, but like doing things where he was stopping gun violence and stuff like that in New York, where he was really showing up in those type of spaces. I think watching that, being inspired by the ones before me, like I said, my dad, my uncle, and the older ones in front of me, showing me what was really important in life, really molded me to understand what was important as I got older and what I wanted to take from what they were doing and kind of implement into the way that I run myself and my business and my life, is, keep carrying that torch of advocacy and giving back and intention. And I think that's what really helped mold me.
And being on screen, what did you learn about storytelling from that experience? Because I imagine you didn't know back then, like, this could be my life on the other side of the camera one day. But what did you learn? What lessons did you learn from being on screen about, what happens behind the scenes to make sure that story gets told properly?
I think the biggest thing that I learned being on screen is, take advantage of the time you do get on screen, because only you can, control your narrative on screen. A person can only judge you or think who you are through what, you show. No matter if it's editing and people edit you to look in a different light or whatever, they can only give what you get. They can only get what you give, and they can only put out what you put out, right? So I think that one thing I did learn growing up is that you can control your narrative on that screen. You can truly control your narrative. You can change the way people look at you. You can change. You can inspire through your storytelling on TV. You can really use that time while you're on screen to really, use it intentionally, as I would say.
Yeah, I want you to go a level deeper there, because we hear so much about, brand is what other people say about you, not what you say about you. It's how, as a storyteller now, how do you help both your clients and the public understand that this is what, pick a brand that you work with, this is what we are, so that the clients, the customers also say, yeah, that's what we love them for, that's why we rock with them.
Authenticity. We don't try to force anything. If you're not doing that in your brand, we're not going to tell you to go do that now so we can get content of it, or, oh, let's go into this space. No, what are you doing now? Or what could you be doing that would feel natural to you, that we can catch and we can tell the story to the consumer, so the consumer remembers why they even purchase from you in the first place. Yeah, of course they probably like your product of your or your service, but mainly they like who you are. They like your story. They like where you came from. I love this same story. You know, my wife and I were talking. I said, you know, you go in the supermarket and there's 6 different toilet roll brands and all of them make money,
Yeah.
not because, you know, one is better than the other. It's because they all have their own story. They all came from a certain place. They all, you know, they all etched their name in the game some type of way. So I think that I always tell people the best sale is being yourself and telling your story. Because once somebody can relate, they want to buy the product not just because of the product, but because they relate to the story.
I love that. You know, we talk a lot about legacy on this show. People wanting to build wealth and legacy, building or utilizing tech, implementing
Right.
tech. So maybe they're not building it, but they're leveraging it in a specific way. You know, you grew up in a world of legacy. It was legacy all around you.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, but you also have ideas for yourself and, you know, things that you want to do and carve your own path. You know, can
Yeah.
you talk about the expectations that were on you and that you've maybe or even self-inflicted because you
Yeah.
came up around this?
Very self-inflicted. You know, I thought about this the other day, and I love that question because I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, you know, although I enjoyed rap and I'm very passionate about rap music, I almost felt like I wouldn't say forced because nobody forced me to do anything, but I felt more drawn to that space because of what Dad does and what Dad did. And it's like maybe I'm supposed to be in the entertainment space to carry this torch, whether it's through the entrepreneurial spirit in the music space or it's the rapping side, right? I feel like I self-inflicted that pressure on me. I don't
Yeah.
think my dad or my uncle ever was like, you need to do this and you need to carry this torch and you've got to be Run Junior or you got to be just like Russell. I think that they always just supported me in anything and everything I did, whether it was to play basketball or it was anything that I wanted to do. I think they supported it. So I think it was a lot of self-inflicted pressure. But I won't fully say self-inflicted because there was still pressure to win, and there was still a
Hmm.
pressure to
Hmm.
represent the legacy in the right way and to uphold the legacy in the right way. So I would say the pressure of entering into the spaces that I did came from myself thinking I need to do that. But the pressure of wanting to win and having to win and dealing with losses bad came from like knowing that my family is a team of winners and you know and we were able to win for a really long time.
Yeah. You know, I think about people who have won and, you know, like let's say you've won Grammys before, you've, you know, won Academy Awards or you're a best selling author. And then other people come to you and they say, I want to be a best selling author too. Show me how. And you're like, I can show you what I did, but I can't guarantee that you'll have that outcome.
Right.
When you say that, you know, they supported you, your uncle supported you, your father supported you, did they also put on you like, yo, like, yeah, we support you, but I can't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be the biggest rapper out there.
Oh, always, always. I mean, I think that's important to keep it real. And I was talking to a friend about that the other day. They were telling me that their son wants to be a rapper and he's young, and I was like, you know, just support him, but like be real with him at all times. And I think that's what kept it. That's what was good for me. Is my dad would never was like, you're going to be the biggest this, or you're going to be, you know, just work hard. And however God plans it out for you, or however life unravels, is that's how it's going to unravel. But just because you know you have the resources, or even if I give you my blueprint of how I did it, it isn't necessarily going to
Hmm.
work for you the same way. You know, like I heard the other day, you know, uh, people's plans aren't one size fits all. You know, like just because the way that they had a plan, it may not fit your plans. You know, you got to everybody has to go through their own experience, and everybody has to have their own, you know, their own kind of you know lessons in life to get to where they need to go.
I would like you to describe storytelling for good. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what principles drive this mission that you're on?
It's intentional storytelling. It's telling the story that needs to be told. It's telling the story of the underrepresented people. It's telling the story of the people that you don't hear about. It's telling the stories of all the positivity in the world, the things that are going on, the things that can change, the things that can impact. Like I like telling stories, and of course, we see all these great TV shows and movies and all this other stuff. And I like working on the things that create impact. I like working on the things that get people passionate about being part of a community to change things, right? To be good, to be positive, to build each other up. Because I always say this, we're in a space in a world where people are just beating each other down all the time. And that's what I truly feel like. Every podcast, every blog space, every space you walk in, it's like somebody's being judged for something. And our idea of for good is literally just being good, man, and putting out the
Yeah.
good in the space and putting out the good in the world and being that little room of good that you can just come into and just breathe for a minute. Everything over here is positivity. We're not judging you. We're not biased. We're not doing none of that. We're, you know, a multicultural team over here at 3 is 4 in the For Good universe. So like that's what we wanted to look like in the world, right? Just everybody working together, you know, in unison. You know what I mean?
So when somebody of your name, you know, puts out, we're doing this thing, I would assume that you have a lot of inbound. Yo, we have this idea for a project. We would love to work with you, JoJo. More things than you have the time with bandwidth, you know, to do. How do you filter through what is worth you working on? Because not everything that's you may want to work on, you should work on either.
Yeah, we try to work on everything, but we do have a policy. If 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 the intention isn't good, then we're probably gonna turn it down. Like we're not just picking up every dollar. You know, obviously I say this all the time, revenue and income, all of that is important in any company. But we will not work with assholes. I'm sorry if I can't curse, but we
Yeah,
just won't work with assholes. We won't work with people that don't understand the intention of being good. We won't work with people that don't understand the importance of what we do, and I don't never want to shy away or a client to ever think, oh, he doesn't work with us because maybe I'm not a good enough person. I'm not saying that. I think everybody has good in them. But I'm just saying, like, we're just not going to work with people that aren't going to speak to us with respect and aren't going to respect the craft and respect the time that we put into our work and respect that, you know, that there's, you know, what they do is deeper than just, you know, sales and revenue, because ultimately what drives sales and revenue is, like I said, authenticity and really connecting to the people. And there's so many clients that we're so thankful for that you would never think would care about the storytelling, but they do, and they telling us that it's working and that the community is really biting on it, and it's amazing because these are spaces that they wouldn't be like storytelling about what, like, you know, we've worked in the tobacco space, and you would never think that the storytelling matters, but it
mm-hmm.
does. You know, it really does, and the brands that we work with understand that, and then they come back to us and say, hey, it's working and it looks great. And
Yeah.
those are the kind of clients we love to work with. It's like it doesn't matter what space you in, understand that the storytelling and being real with people, you know, it goes a long way.
What's the project you've worked on that you're most proud of?
Right now it has to be the For Good podcast. You know, my podcast that I'm hosting. We obviously we work on a lot of projects. We have a lot of different clients. We've done experiential work. We've done documentaries. We've done, you know, all type of content for people that I'm super proud of. Like I said, but I think just the podcast, like I literally after before this, I was just doing an interview on the other side. I was being you, right? I was interviewing somebody in the same space because, you know, I love the conversations we're having. They're so inspiring, they're so impactful, and they're not always celebrities. That's the biggest thing to me. It's like, yeah, we have the big names, the millions of followers, but then we're talking to the people that don't really have that many followers, but have an amazing story, and the impact is crazy
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when you look at the audio downloads, they're about the same neck and neck with some of these celebrity downloads because it's like the conversation is amazing and the conversation is impactful. And my byline on it is, you know, welcome to the For Good podcast, where we focus on the good, never the bad, and we're
Mm-hmm.
measured by what we do, not what we have. So this isn't about how much money you
Yeah,
have, how many
yeah.
cars you got, how many cars you know, how many houses you bought, how many women you. I don't care about that. What are you doing in the world? What are you doing for your mental health? What are you doing for your personal growth? And how can somebody that's a fan of you or that's listening right now be inspired by that if they're going through a time where they just don't know what to do? Those are the conversations I love having. The For Good podcast is just everything that I envisioned it to be when I came up with the idea and I came up with the name with my team. It's everything we envisioned it to be. It's like a non-biased, non-judgmental space, a safe space, as we like to call it, a brave space, as we super like to call it, for people to just come and talk and not be judged.
Yeah, let's say more about that. You know, I think about you're obviously talented. There's a lot of things you could be spending your time doing. And what was the decision making like process for, you know what, it's worth it for me to spend a few hours a week doing a podcast versus the other things you could be doing?
My curiosity. I'm passionate about my curiosity. I'm curious about everything. I'm curious about people. I love people. So I love having conversations. I will literally have conversations in the supermarket with the lady checking me out and just, you know, ask where she's from and ask how she's doing and ask how her mental health is, because that's who I am at my core. So it makes it very easy. It doesn't feel like work when I have when I have to go interview every week. It feels like, oh, who do I get to interview this week?
Mm-hmm,
Okay,
mm-hmm,
great. Like this is amazing. I'm passionate about conversation, you know? Like it's funny because I've been in front of the screen my whole life, and in some senses, I do want to step back. In some senses, I don't want to be in front of the screen. But these conversations are needed. It feels like my calling, right? It feels like if I have a platform and I can use the platform for good, I'm going to do that, right? So that's why I'm just so passionate about those conversations that it doesn't feel like I have to take some hours out of my day to do something that I don't want to do, or do something that, oh, I check off my feel good list for the day. No,
Yeah.
it's genuinely not that. It's an authentic conversation that I love having with people. That's why I tell my team, hey, keep them booked up every Tuesday, keep them booked up. And then I do some in persons with people. So like, keep me booked, please keep me booked, and please keep me with guests, because I love talking to everybody.
You've been recognized for your work with mental health, and I wonder, other than just being curious about things, like what dedicates you to that particular
Oh, my
conversation?
my own mental health. Growing up, being a teen star, a child star, I'm sure you can think that took a toll on my mental health. It was a little different for me to go right into fame and then really not ever be normal again. Like, still to this day, I'm not normal, right? And I don't say that in like a cocky way. I say that in a way of like, I'm gonna be recognized everywhere I go. So just focusing on me and making sure that my mental health is good, and that I don't let any of the outside world distract my positivity or my happiness. That's the main thing about mental health. Is people they find it hard to stay happy and stay positive, and it's because all the distractions of the outside world and all the prejudging and the judging yourself and the putting pressures on yourself. I think that I had a lot of that growing up, and when I was able to really sit down and realize it was a mental health issue, and I needed to really take time to myself and really figure out who I am and what makes me happy and what doesn't matter in life and what does matter, is when I realized that, okay, I'm good. I want to pour into others. I want others to understand that mental health doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. We all go through these mental health problems where we all think about, or we're all in our head about something. And I think that me just being, once again, a platform where I could talk for that space, especially in Black and brown communities where we know that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of therapists, and a lot of people aren't understanding that they have mental health issues. I thought it was important that I be one of those people with followers to kind of represent.
How do you loop in the storytelling with that effort to destigmatize it?
I mean, we all have a story to tell, and it all plays a part in our mental health, whether it's a sad story, a happy story, or a mad story. We all went, it all plays into your mental health. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most important thing, is relatable storytelling. That's why storytelling is so great, because you may tell a story and somebody be like, I went through the same thing. Oh wow, he went through that. I went through the same thing. And that's the importance of storytelling in mental health, because people like Jay Barnett, who was an ex NFL player who almost committed suicide, now is a mental health advocate, and he speaks to so many men and people. And you would never think somebody so powerful would be going through that, but there's somebody on the other side that said, I was going to commit suicide too. And I wasn't even an NFL player, and I wasn't probably even making the money, but he made me stop. He made me not do it because his story related to my story. And I realized that it wasn't over. I realized that I still have strength to keep going. That's why storytelling is the most important part of mental health. Is telling your story so other people can hear it and say, oh, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm not the only one going through this.
We've talked about some of your projects and some of your ideas, and you seem like, and you give the energy of someone who has a lot of ideas.
Oh my
And
God.
I wonder, like, what's your process like? So when you have an idea for a concept, you can pick three of the things that you're working on. Like, what's the first thing that you do in order to take that thing from just concept to actually reality?
Bring it to the team, bring it to my partners, see what they think about it first. Because sometimes, as creative with ADHD, I throw things at the wall. I'm like, and most of the time they like it. But like, yeah, man, bring it to the team and see if not if it's possible, because anything's possible. Bring it to the team and see what it will take to bring that to life, or what it will take to bring that vision to life. So that's always the next thing, is envisioning it and then planning it. A lot of people are great at envisioning an idea, but then get lazy or don't really want to put the work in to actually plan it, right? You need to envision, you need to plan, and then you need to execute. And I think that's the most important thing. So envision first, planning with the people that matter and that can help you really execute, and then execute.
So how do you balance the freedom to be creative that you have with the efforts to have actual outcomes? Because
Um,
they don't always play together.
How do I, so say that, ask that question again so I
Yeah,
can really.
so you have a lot of creative freedom. You have a studio, you can do all the projects you want to do. You got a camera, the microphones, all the things, and you got the ideas to go produce these things. But you need specific outcomes to make them make sense. So how do you balance those two things? Like, yo, JoJo just wants to do this, but how do we know, or how do we ensure that the outcomes, the revenue, the numbers, the watchers, the listeners are there best suited to target that thing?
It's hard, obviously stats play into it, and looking at the algorithm and all that stuff. You can say all of that, but I think that you know I've been blessed to be able to get on camera and just be authentic, and it really gravitate towards the people. We've had a few viral clips, and we've done really well, when it comes to a lot of the views and downloads. So I just say, like, I wouldn't never say like I couldn't do something I didn't envision. I just say that really it's just been easy for me. It hasn't felt like I've done anything that I haven't wanted to do when it comes to the podcast or talking to people. It just feels like easy. And obviously we need to have an outcome. We're pouring money into it, so we need to get money out of it. But that comes with consistency and building. And what I do know is, are we better than yesterday? That's my main question. Are we growing from yesterday, or are we regressing? Are we progressing, or are we regressing? And from what I see is we're constantly progressing. The followers are going up. The community is growing. The conversation is getting longer, and the conversation is starting of how important the For Good podcast is for the world. So yeah, that's how I see the outcome right now, is that it's impacting people. And when you impact people, the revenue comes. The revenue always comes when you impact people.
You brought up the word stats, and I think about there's feedback that you get when you produce content and strategies, stories for other people. You get an audience feedback, you get an audience reaction, and there's also, like, just creatively, you want to do a certain thing. How has the feedback you received shaped or changed or altered or massaged the ideas that you wanted to put into the world?
I used to be super protective over my creative ideas, especially when people used to give feedback. I used to not want to really hear it, because like you had this idea and it's going to work. But I've become way more open to feedback. I believe even on YouTube, like after one of my biggest first episodes with my sister Vanessa, I had a lot of feedback about me talking over her and kind of host I was. And instead of like being hurt about it, but like everybody's wrong, I came and said, okay, I'm going to look at your feedback and I'm going to implement some of the things that I do think you guys are right about. I'm not going to automatically be offended. I want to be taught how to be better every day. So always open to hearing feedback nowadays. Even if it's not feedback I want to hear, I gotta hear that feedback and really think, is that real feedback? Is that right feedback? Can I implement that feedback? So like feedback isn't bad for me. I love feedback. I look for feedback every chance I get.
You talked a little bit about mental health and your upbringing and how being in the public eye, kind of affected you. And most of us will never have that sort of experience. But I wonder how your thoughts and efforts to opening up this discussion for mental health for people who've been in the industry, music, TV, or whatever, what gaps exist still for them?
Oh man, a lot of people, don't know who to speak to. A lot, the truth of the matter is people are having problems finding mental health therapists that relate to them. And, there's harder, especially in the Black and brown communities and the artists. You don't, not everybody is going to understand what an artist is going through, or even a Black and brown artist at that, right? There's a lot of different therapists, but a lot of them are finding it hard to find Black therapists, and they are out there, but a lot of them are, finding that a hard thing. So that's one of the loops. And another thing is like them not paying attention to their mental health. Them not being aware. I think once everybody becomes more aware, they take it a little bit more serious. But people are just living and just going and just, going on with their life. You know what I mean? And not really taking the time to say, hey, am I okay? Because, I love that I had a recent conversation and somebody said, you go through these mini traumas all day. And sometimes you never sit with it and say, I am bothered by that, or, this did bother me. And, I think that's the main thing is people not being aware of their mental health, and also, people just not finding the right help for the mental health.
Other than the conversations, which you said you love to have these conversations on your show and otherwise, just talking to people, like how do you sustain your own mental health? Like what
I
do you do?
I give myself the space to breathe, and I run to my family. I love my family. I got kids and a wife, so like spending time with them or just getting my time to take to myself. So I always say if I have a empty glass, I can't fill nobody else's glass. So I need to fill my glass of positivity first, so I can give everybody else a glass of positivity. So I really just take the time to myself. I'm very big on my barriers. I'm very big on my space, and I'm very big on just making sure that I take care of me so I can take care of everybody else.
What advice do you offer creatives, entrepreneurs, and others who are trying to diversify revenue? Because especially like in the beginning, when you are building content studio, whether you're a creative yourself and you are a videographer, or you're building a studio, or you're trying to just put together a collective, the revenue isn't always there in the beginning. And you're trying to, put things into the world that show you that you can do this and that people can trust you with it. So talk about, diversifying your how to find the money. How do you find the money?
Show up in spaces and show up and show your value and your strengths in all spaces. A lot of, it's crazy. I could tell this story. In 3 is 4 first started, we were only showing up in the cannabis spaces and doing content in the cannabis spaces. And although that was great and we were telling great stories, is that's what we wanted to do, a lot of the revenue wasn't there. A lot of these cannabis brands didn't have money for content. They had more money for like location and
Yeah,
license
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that other stuff. And like it wasn't like we're ready to spend a nice bag on a good content piece or storytelling. So we had to diversify, like you said, and go into other spaces and say, okay, we're not just good at storytelling in cannabis, we're good at content storytelling and content strategy for anybody. We're creatives, right? We're not just creative in cannabis, we're creative anywhere. So I tell people that never put yourself in a box. You can do more than just one thing. You can do more than you envision, especially if you find your strengths and you lean into your strengths. Your strengths can lead you to so many different places, not just the place that you thought you can go.
Being a husband and a father, how do you integrate, that work that you do, in whether it be advocacy or creative work? How do you integrate that in your whole life?
Man, I just think being a husband and a father is just super inspiring. And I think that it's just like the gym for me. It sets discipline, it sets routine, it sets. I feel like the most successful people, they got a family, and they're just super focused, and they're just focused on the task at hand. And I think that that's how I integrate it, is just having a solid foundation at home so I can go and be the best me. And I don't have to be distracted by any of the other things. I know that I got a great wife at home. I know I got my beautiful, smart kids at home. And that just helps me keep on going every day. That just helps me know that that part of my life is good, right? That part of my life is set. And now I can go be creative and do and be the best I can be. I don't have to worry about all that other thing, all the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when people, we hear stories of people who have grown up like you. They grow up with means. They grow up in the public eye, and there's often, which I'm sure you've heard, there's stories about how maybe they don't know how to hustle. Maybe there's you're spoiled by it. There's quotes that one generation earns it, one generation takes advantage of it, uses it up. The third generation
Um,
loses it all.
yeah.
Right? And
One,
so
one generation earns it, one generation burns it,
that's
right?
right. That's right. That's right. And so, like, how did your upbringing ensure that that doesn't happen? And what are you teaching your children so that they understand what it means to work hard?
I think my dad did a great job of making sure we had everything we needed, but making sure that we weren't entitled to believe that what he worked hard for that we would take or he would just constantly give. It was more of the fact that okay, now that you're on your own, I've given you the lessons and I've given you everything you need to get. I need to give you. I think he gave us all the greatest opportunity. As much as it might not there might have been some downfalls for it, but the greatest opportunity was putting us all on TV and giving us all our own career, right? That's the best thing you can do for somebody to try to figure out how to make some money out here. And I think that that was one of the greatest things he did. But not just that, it was the morals that he instilled in us that like you got to go hustle like I hustle. I'm not gonna just give you what I've worked for, but what I've worked for, you should be able to build on that. So I think that he was very good in teaching us that. And that's the same thing I teach my little ones, although only 9 and 4, I'm able to speak to my 9-year-old now and just tell her how important the legacy is. And no matter how much dad has or how much dad's gonna do for you, I always want you to go out and work hard and go get it on your own and make me proud on your own, no matter what you do. You know what I mean? I don't never want her to also feel entitled. I never want her to feel like I don't support her, but I also don't want her to feel like she doesn't need to work for, what she needs to do. And that plays, even in school now, like, hey, work hard, get good grades, you get rewarded for it. Those are the type of things that in life, you work hard, you get a promotion at work, or you work hard, you're able to blow your brand up, you blow your company up. That's the same thing that I kind of instill in her in school and in sports and whatever she does in life. Is like, we don't give up, we see things through, you know what I mean? And nobody owes you anything. You got to go get it.
How did you learn to lead? I mean, it's one thing from being self determined and going to get it, waking yourself up and going to hustle. It's a different thing when you are leading other people.
It's funny because I thought about this the other day. Somebody, talked to me about it, and I said, I just think I've always been a natural born leader. People have always, gravitated towards following me. Whether it was a bad decision or a good decision, I think a lot of my friends always knew that always thought I had it all together, or always believed that, like, hey, this is the guy that's going to lead us to the water. Not just because I'm Run Son or I'm a celebrity, but because I've always had the plan. I've always had the vision, and I've always know how to use people and their strengths around me, to make people feel empowered and make people feel part of the team. And that's a special thing to do on its own. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, yeah, you can be a person with a team, but to be a leader is to understand everybody that you have around you and what they do best to make it all work for all of you guys, so you can all get money. Like, listen, I'm getting money and I have companies with the guys that I went to high school with. You can't tell me that, like, that's not, the coolest thing in the world, because we were all able to find our strengths and understand what we're doing. But I think that, like, most of my life, people just gravitated towards, following my lead, and I've taken pride in, like, leading my guys to the water so we can all drink.
Looking back at the work that you've done, what legacy are you building?
Oh, I'm building a legacy of impact. I say this in every interview. It's impact. It's not about how much money I've done made. It's not about, what I've done, what I've done when it comes to all the other stuff. It's about what I've done to add to the legacy that I'm already came from, but in my own way, in my own space, right? So, like, it's the impact that I create. When I'm long gone, I want people to say, man, he really showed up for people. He really represented the people he wanted to represent, and he really did his all that he can do. Because I know a lot of people look at myself, my siblings, and people like me that came with means and opportunities and say, well, they don't care about other people. They're good, but I don't want nobody to ever think that about me. I want people to know that I relate and I understand. And in any chance or way that I can help the community, I'm always going to show up, whether it's in the cannabis space, the mental health space, the financial space, any space where Black, brown, underserved, or people that just don't get it. I want to be the one to educate and help them get it.
And finally, for Black creatives, young ones particularly, but not solely the young ones, it's called contextual. For Black creatives aspiring to, find their way, integrate, culture, commerce, creativity, and community in their work, and find an opportunity to build a life off of that, what's some of the pieces of advice you would have for them?
Ooh, how would they mesh creativity? You said, say that one more time.
Creativity, community, commerce. They got to make money.
Yeah.
Culture. How do they do that?
All of that, you just said it. You just said it. Being in the culture, being in the community, you know what I mean? Like, showing up in the spaces and seeing what's happening. Being outside, being amongst the people, being amongst all the people, and I think that's how you stay creative. That's how I get my inspiration, is being around my people, going around. So sometimes I just like to walk around Harlem and just look at my people. I just, that's how I get inspired. That's how I get creative. So I think that just being outside, man. I tell people the best way to make money is being outside and knowing how to talk to people and starting conversations with people. You never know who you're speaking to when you go outside. So, get outside, get to the events with the like-minded people like you, get to the spaces where people are doing things that you're doing, and just build relationships. Don't think about, obviously we think about money, but think about relationships. Think about people, because one thing I have learned is the greatest relationships that we've made were authentic relationships that have spun the block on us and came back and said, I got some money for you. I got an opportunity for you. I got a check for you. Why? Because we showed up in spaces and we showed our strengths, we showed our values, but we showed who we were. We didn't just show that we can offer you something. We showed you that we're good people. And I think that people like working with good people. And that's why it works for us. So I say that to everybody else out there. Go out there and be an authentic, good person, and it'll come to you.